Thank you so much, Dr. Simone and Dr. Cantor, for that plethora of information surrounding sickle cell. I'm so glad that I can be in a space where I can be learning. So I hope that you all are learning as well. And so now, before we go deeper into the program, how many of y'all like surprises? I know I did. So we have a surprise for two ladies that's sitting on the panel. I'm just saying, come on down. It's kind of a surprise to me too. Come on.
So it is my honor and pleasure to present Dolly and Dora with two gifts.
You was the two ladies sitting on the panel.
Yeah, but it is a surprise.
A real surprise.
This one is for Dolly.
Oh my
And Dora,
goodness.
let me grab yours. And then is Eugenia here?
Probably back there. Oh my goodness.
you.
This is so
Gina,
nice.
this is
Wow.
actually for Edna, but I was just hoping that you could accept it for her.
Isn't it?
Thank you so much. So this is just a thank you for all of your hard work and dedication to make today happen. So thank you for being here and all of your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, board lady.
Listen, y'all can clap at home
And
in the studio. You know, my grandmother used to say,
Japanese
give people
cherry
their
blossom.
flowers while they yet live, so
Yes.
that they can smell the beauty that they bring. So again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Salute to you, Dora and Dolly, the double D. Oh,
The
not
double-
double D's. What? Squeeze D Sickle, right? You and Dora got it.
Sickle, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
I'm so here for it. Oh my goodness. Can we keep it moving? Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to keep it moving. Like I said, we heard a lot of information about sickle cell. Let's move on now to some tips for healthy eating with Dr. Zelda Okia, and housing cleaning and laundry tips with Dr. Azuma. And then we're going to be followed by C.C. Brown to talk about work support from the state.
Have all the information about your medical history and background. Okay, great. All right, so my objectives are so that you would have a better understanding about the role of nutrition in sickle cell disease, recognize the relationships between protein and energy deficiencies in sickle cell and how that manifests in terms of growth and development, and then tips to consider as you're changing into or perhaps adopting more of a whole food diet for yourself. Next slide. So as a coach, I work with my clients, particularly when they are facing things that might be difficult or more challenging for them. And one of the ways that I encourage them is to approach it with gratitude. And so even if you are someone that struggles with your sickle cell disease, ask how you can utilize the information that you'll receive now and the recognition of your body's reaction and response to the changes that it's going through as a way to, again, help and support you. Sickle cell disease evolved as a means to prevent a more deadly infection. And so people that had the sickle cell gene were more resistant to malaria. So it's a way for our body evolved for longevity. But now that we're not dealing with that, then we're having secondary effects from that. But it's a way to just look at the way that our body is protecting us and treat it with that respect and understanding and compassion. Next slide. So although, as I said, I'm a medical doctor, I'm not your doctor, so definitely this is for educational purposes, and please share this information with your doctor if you want to implement some of these changes. Next slide. So as Dr. Cantor very nicely explained, sickle cell anemia is caused by a change in an amino acid. And because of that, when there's low oxygen tension in the body, and the body experiences that, then the cells can tend to sickle and cause occlusion of blood vessels, and then we have the secondary effects because of that. Next slide. So one of the things that she also did mention is about inflammation. And sickle cell disease is a wearing of the body. A lot of that is due to the inflammation that occurs afterwards. And so one of the things that we do within True Nutrition is to promote the antioxidants and making sure that our body is well equipped to counteract the effects of the reactive oxygen free radicals that can occur, particularly in the face of inflammation. So that's where vitamins and nutrition really comes in to support the body for healing and overall wellness. Next slide. So sickle cell disease and nutrition, it's only since the 1980s that nutrition has been really looked at as a complication of the disease. And given the chronic nature of the symptoms, the best hope for long-term treatment and well-being is self-administered oral therapy. And so looking at how can you utilize nutrition as an oral therapy, self-administered, to decrease morbidity and mortality, as well as improve the quality of life for those who have sickle cell disease. Next slide. So this chronic hemolysis has a weathering effect, a chronic wear and tear on the body. And the normal recommended dietary allowances for the general population are often insufficient when looking in sickle cell disease. And there's documented chronic macronutrient as well as micronutrient deficiencies. Next slide. So the malnutrition that's seen in sickle cell disease is multifactorial. There often is a low consumption of food during a pain crisis. Obviously, last thing you're thinking about is eating. And also an increased or hypermetabolism due to the ongoing red cell turnover. Next slide. Hyperhemolysis, hypermetabolism. So the hypermetabolism, there's about 52% higher protein turnover in sickle cell disease, higher rates of hemoglobin synthesis, higher myocardial or heart oxygen demands, and greater resting energy expenditures. Next slide. So there weren't not many nutritional supplementation studies that have been done in the sickle cell population. But the studies that are out there do show a benefit and support for increasing the amount of fat, protein, and carbohydrate intake. And that, along with the continuous monitoring of nutritional balance to maintain healthy food choices that nurture growth and development. Next slide. So just from several of the articles I found, vitamin deficiencies in sickle cell diseases run the gamut. The vitamin A, the B complex vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, as well as calcium and zinc and selenium. And many of these are vitamins that work together to enhance the immune system, the immune function, and they're antioxidant type of vitamins, and they work in conjunction with one another. So it is important to maintain these levels of vitamins and minerals, and in some of the papers, just supplementing these vitamin deficiencies actually does help to decrease some of the painful crises. Next slide. So the vitamin B complexes, again, it's a chronic hemolysis, so any vitamin that can help with the manufacture of the red blood cells, B6, B5. B6 supports the immune system and immune function, we saw with the chronic inflammation. Here's one I found, brewer's yeast. I don't know if anybody uses that, but that is a very rich source of proteins, B complex vitamins, chromium, iron, selenium, zinc, and potassium. This is also one that may affect some medications, so even if you are going to implement that, it's good to talk with your doctor ahead of time. Also, grapefruits. Grapefruits can also affect different medications. So definitely it's important to talk to your doctor when you're introducing new foods into your diet because they can affect the metabolism. Particularly if you are doing any kind of chemotherapeutic agent, you might want to suppress the immune system. Then you don't want to take something that's going to boost your immune system and counterbalance with the treatment that you are receiving. But on the whole, I really advocate for foods. So broccoli, egg yolks, kelp, leafy green vegetables, poultry, and fish. These are all good sources of naturally occurring vitamins and minerals that we can obtain from food. Next slide. Iron deficiency. It's interesting, there's iron deficiency anemia as well as iron overload. Many sickle cell disease, many patients will have chronic transfusions, and that can lead to iron overload. And iron overload can also lead to damage of other organs. So that's why it's important to make sure that you are maintaining the acceptable and appropriate levels of these minerals in the body. Calcium and vitamin D I'll talk about also. With iron, it's important. Obviously, you don't want to take iron if you're iron overloaded to begin with. But iron is one that's also, the absorption of iron is affected by the foods. So you want to take your iron at least 1 hour before a meal or 2 hours after meals. Next slide. Another deficiency is vitamin D. So particularly with darker skinned individuals living in the colder climates, vitamin D deficiency is rampant, regardless of your if you have sickle cell or not. I had to request a vitamin D level from my doctor, so if you've never had that level checked, I would encourage you to request that and get the level checked because it's low in many individuals, and it has so many beneficial effects, particularly with bones, as we're talking about sickle cell disease. Bone destruction is very common occurrence, so as much as possible, vitamin D levels, we want to maintain those. It's in some of the food sources. I've got their cheese, butter, fortified dairy products, as well as fatty fish. I do have cereals on there. It is in fortified cereals, and other items too. You can go to the next slide. Next slide. Vitamin E is another one. Cold pressed vegetable oils, whole grains, dark leafy green vegetables. Next slide. Coenzyme Q is another supplement that I take that also. It's a very powerful antioxidant, and it has many beneficial effects in respiratory diseases and asthma and also in other allergies. And it's found in many different food sources, particularly fish. Next slide. So I want to just some tips here. Water. Drinking adequate water intake is so important. Dehydration increases the risk of a pain crisis. Dehydration also is a risk factor for if anyone has any kidney disease or if they're on metformin. You want to be sure to maintain your adequate hydration, at least 8 to 12 8 ounces of water, glasses of water per day. Next slide. Just advocating to read labels, to know what it is that you're taking into your body, particularly with salt. Next slide. This is just another one showing it's 630 milligrams of salt in 1 cup of soup. Many of us will take in a lot more than that. So it's important to read labels and to know what you are purchasing. Next slide. Just wanted to advocate for whole foods. avoiding the processed food as much as possible. Avoid the white flour, avoid any added sugars, and avoid the added oils. Next slide. So in some instances, just avoiding processed foods altogether is a great way to maintain weight and also to maintain a healthy diet. So in planning ahead of time, this is another thing I work with my clients on. So plan to eat healthy. If you don't plan to eat healthy, you're planning to eat unhealthy. You want to keep the whole foods around you so that when you are hungry, it's available to you. If you have processed foods too closely available to you, those are the things that you're going to eat. Next slide. When you're shopping, I advocate shop the perimeter of the grocery store. Find affordable and whole foods that you enjoy, because obviously you're not going to eat something if you don't like it. Make a list of all the items and take that list with you, and don't be afraid to experiment with different types of vegetables. Next slide. Some of the habits that I like, there's 5 things you can look at when you're trying to change a bad habit, so you can use these same things when you're trying to incorporate good habits. The location, think about where you want healthy food so that they're always available to you, at home, at work, in your car. The time, plan the times that you're going to eat so you don't tend to just eat mindlessly. Monitor your emotions and how that affects your choices with food. And then the people, engage others, engage family members to help and support you as you're looking to make changes in your diet. Next slide. Processed foods are less filling, so you want to avoid those because you're just eating many empty calories. The processed foods are designed to make them more palatable, so you want to eat more. So the more that you can incorporate whole foods that actually fill you up and are meeting your body's nutritional requirements, the less hungry you'll feel. Next slide. Processed foods are less filling. Most people have unlimited access to processed foods. That's by design. 77% of the food Americans buy is processed. So that's why 71% of us or above are overweight. Next slide. So as much as possible, eliminate processed foods from your diet. Eat whole foods. I like soups and stews and broths, and you just throw all the vegetables in there. I love to use a food processor that helps with digestion, helps you to break the food down. And homemade bone broth is a great source of protein and collagen. Next slide. Whole foods. Our bodies are adapted to whole foods. Our bodies are not adapted to processed foods. Next slide. I think I'm almost done. And then juicing. Again, this is easy food options. Juicing is not so easy to me, but if you are able and you have a juicer, fresh juices should be squeezed at home and consumed immediately. So try not to go out and buy it. And these are juicing of fruits and vegetables gives you a very concentrated amount of vitamins and minerals that your body may not be able to break down. So next slide. Green juices, they help to build red blood cells. And chlorophyll, green juices are made from spinach, celery, cabbage, greens, and other vegetables. And you can also include fruits. I think that might be the next slide. That's the last one. Yeah, so there's QRS code there if you want to reach out to me. And got my information there. So thank you very much.
So again, this is me. I'm Dr. Azuma. Like I was saying earlier, I'm a board certified OBGYN. I'm a public health professional, and I'm a part of Alafia. I'm part of their board. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I'm here today to just talk as a life coach and as a co-founder of Love Your Menses, an organization that talks about menstruation and menstrual equity. So my talk here, I was about basically how to manage as one living with sickle cell. Before I would say someone surviving sickle cell. And my thing is, in life, we all have to accept our difference, right? We have to be self-aware of our limitations. I went on YouTube and I was reading or listening to a lot of sickle cell survivors share their stories. It was very tearful, like going to the ED and being scared of going to the ED because you don't want anyone to label you as someone that's addicted to pain medication. So we know living with sickle cell is hard, but don't make it harder on yourself. I know sometimes people come to your house, it might not be tidy enough, and that's really okay. Just accept yourself and live free. Again, we have one life to live. That's what I would say. We have one life to live. So it's important for us to accept ourselves and live freely. So, in terms of cleaning, you don't have to clean every day. You know, it's important to have a clean environment, right? Because if you have a clean environment, you're less likely to have infections, right? So, it's very important to keep your house clean, but you should not feel guilty if you can't do it every day. You don't need to be OCD about it. So the first step is try to tidy up daily, maybe take 5 minutes to tidy up. But if you're having a crisis, cleaning should not even be an option. So that's one. Number two, you can hire someone to help you clean. And if you don't have the resource, you can ask people within the community. Hopefully, Alafia would one day have a group of volunteers to go help people clean their houses. I'm hoping Etlin and Darlene will be able to do that. So have volunteers come help you. You can have volunteers from organizations like ours, Alafia, or people in your church or in your mosque, or even on Facebook to come help you clean. So don't feel guilty if you cannot clean every day. Like, just be you. Like, someone taught me this. Everyone is going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have an opinion, but you should not let their opinion determine how you live your life. I mean, living with sickle cell is already a huge situation. So do not let anyone's opinion about how tidy your house should be or should not be. Again, you decide how tidy you want it to be. Baseline, as a physician, as a public health professional, keep a clean house, but keeping a clean house should not make your condition worse. You know how stress affects sickle cell, right? Stress leads to increase of oxytocin and all of those inflammatory agents that can actually put you in crisis. So cleaning a house should not be stressful. So my second point is the cleaning agents. You don't want to use toxic agents that can even put you to crisis, right? So try and get agents that are safe. What I would recommend you to do is go to a website called Environmental Working Group, EWG. They have a list of agents that are safe to use, agents that will not cause you to have teary eyes, agents that will not affect your respiratory system. So I'm not going to tell you what agents to use because I don't do that. I like each person to be an informed consumer. But I tell you, go to EWG and you will get the information. There are some cleaning agents, maybe 10% that have their ingredients listed behind, so you can see if they have toxic chemicals. So formaldehyde will be one that I will avoid because they do affect you acutely, and also they affect the hormones if we talk about menstruation. But we're not here to talk about menstruation. I'm just here to tell you, one, it's hard living with sickle cell, right? It's hard, but you know what? You're a champion and you can continue to thrive. Thank you, all speakers. We've seen different treatment options. We've seen everything. So I believe that one day we're going